Welcome to the Rising Society podcast. I'm Shane Kennedy.
I'm Nico Galliano, the rejected gentleman.
And I'm your boy, Shannonito.
Shannonito.
Yeah.
Dude, 2 weeks in a row.
I know, man. This has been one hell of a 2-week ride, man.
Oh, I'm sorry, 3 weeks in a row, brother. It's good to have you.
We're doubling down. We're tripling down.
We're tripling down.
That's almost a month.
Triple crown, dude.
Yep.
What?
Yeah,
Tripling down on the Triple Crown.
That's how long I've been here.
Just sounds like you're drinking a lot. Triple crown. Tripling down on the Triple Crown.
And we're gonna turn that thing that's down into a frown.
Dude, you might be the worst fucking poet ever.
Shane, that's supposed to be your thing, man.
I know.
The Irish is good with the poetry, brother.
We're supposed to be good with the prose.
Come on.
You know?
Why did you commit so hard, dude?
Now the thing is, didn't the Italians invent the sonnet?
Yeah, dude, that was us.
Yep.
So that's the one thing they contributed to the literary category.
What are you fucking talking about, dude? We invented cursive. You write it every fucking time. What are all the books written in cursive?
Now, how would you be able to tell where the sentences stop if it weren't for the contribution of the Irish, like periods, commas,
Did they invent
capital
that?
letters? Yeah, hell yeah. Yes, they did. And you know, that is something that oftentimes gets overlooked, and people like Nico, they don't even realize that their ability to understand the things that they're reading, it's contingent upon the great contributions of the greatest country on the planet, which is Ireland.
All the boring shit in writing you guys came up with. Commas, periods. Only people that were stuck on a fucking island could come up with something like that.
What about the semicolon?
Yeah, useless.
Boom.
No one likes it. I don't even know where the fuck commas go. I just stick them in there.
Of course you don't.
I'm like, this looks like a comma.
Well, and the thing is, and look, man. The thing is, I've known my entire life that you didn't know where to actually put commas.
You don't fucking know where to put commas either, you son of a bitch. I've read your papers. So many fucking commas in there.
Who invented the umlaut?
It was I don't know. It was probably some German nationalist.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So we're going to be talking about foreign policy specifically. We're going to be talking about this article that was published on the American Conservative. And the title of the article is The Illusion of American Generosity. And the subtitle of it is, Despite the mythology of the good superpower, the American empire has been enormously destructive.
We hide behind the veil of egalitarianism.
Yep.
So the
democracy.
So the introduction of the article is 3 paragraphs. I'd like to read that to kind of set the tone. And then what I was kind of thinking we could do is we could kind of hash out what's said in the introduction to the article, and the article is written by a guy named George O'Neill.
Okay.
So
Lead
here,
away, brother. Set
all right.
the tone.
Yep. Here. I'm going to go ahead and start rapping it.
Please don't.
No.
Please.
Let me get the beat.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Because of our strong Christian heritage, most Americans innately believe in being generous to their neighbors. Good neighborliness was central to our country's founding ethos. Locally and nationally, there are a myriad of groups and organizations that provide support and assistance to people in need. This tradition is an important component of American culture, or is an important component of our culture. Consequently, much of our populace believes the United States government is a force for good around the world and an important contributor to world stability. This is a myth. For decades, this traditional national embrace of generosity towards others has been used by our political and cultural elites to gull the American population into supporting many activities that are anything but generous, and often turn out to be extremely destructive. Over the years, there has been a continuous chorus from the leading elites supporting the false narrative that the United States is doing good around the world, the myth of the indispensable nation. Since the Second World War, American elites or American ruling elites have called for numerous military interventions to save democracy, protecting some nation from communists, terrorists, fascists, or various reincarnations of Hitler, or worse. The accusations of usually the accusations are usually accompanied by shrill calls for the great and indispensable nation to act, to hold the line, or mete out harsh justice to Shannon, is that word mete?
Yeah, meat.
Okay, mete. Or mete out hard justice to the latest designated evildoer. This nonsense is cheered on by mainstream media outlets until recently. Average Americans have not had access to any information which would expose the lies and hidden malfeasance behind these claims. Fortunately, thanks to alternative media, that ignorance is rapidly receding. All right, so thoughts, Nico or Shannon?
I'll let you start, brother.
Yeah, spit it off, dude. You're in your rapping mood.
So I wholeheartedly agree with it that I really like the fact that he used receding as the last word of kind of the introduction to the article, because in many ways the order established in the world, and especially in America at the end of World War II, it is receding. Mm-hmm. It's very much like the way we imagine glaciers receded over a very long period of time. It's the kind of the new American Republic that was established at the end of World War II and has existed all the way up until this point. It's receding. I mean, a lot of people would say it began receding maybe during the Bush years when they, lied to invade Iraq and to
Weapons of mass destruction.
Yeah, weapons of mass destruction, and also too, like during the 90s when the Clinton administration lied to get us to bomb Serbia and Kosovo to hell and back in Bosnia. Yeah. And then during the Obama years we were working to overthrow we overthrew Gaddafi and turned Libya into the world's biggest slave trading market.
Right.
And then and there's been all kinds of stuff in betwixt and in between. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm just gonna say that I fully agree. I love the wording of the introduction, and I love the fact that there's this imagery of this like post World War II order. Yeah, that's receding, and kind of the real world is what's left underneath it. It's almost like a layer of ice.
Right. Well, the thing that I want to start with is, who are we, and have we been doing that for? Whose interests has America? Whose interests have we been serving?
I know where he's going with this.
That's a good question.
You know what I'm saying?
Well, I know the answer. I know what he's going to say.
Okay. So I'm not, hey, I'm not, hey, I'm just saying.
What you just saying?
Whose interest have we been doing this for?
Who do you think it is?
Well, I mean, do we want to let the cat out the bag, or do we want to let the audience just?
We don't want to get banned, right?
Okay. Yeah. So we all.
I thought you were going to say white Protestants.
Okay. You thought I was going to say the WASPs?
Yeah.
Yeah. No.
I think largely. So listen. So this is the thing I'm going to say.
Just kidding, dude.
The WASP elites, I think they're largely gone from America.
Right.
Oh yeah, dude, they don't even exist anymore.
Yeah, I mean, largely like they used to be.
I mean, they're still there, but
this is the thing. They used to be large and in charge of this country. Mm-hmm. But I don't really think they are. They got replaced by a bunch of like atheists.
Yeah.
Oh, they got replaced by atheists?
Yeah, the atheists.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
They got replaced by them, huh?
Now, okay, so what? All right, so Shannon, so your question is, who is this all being done for? Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm. All right, Nico, what's your reflection.
So let's go with. Let's just call him the shadow figures.
Well, specifically on that introduction.
That's where it's going, dude. The fuck? Did you get so nervous for?
I thought you were about to wig off.
Dude, Jesus. Can I fucking talk?
Go ahead.
Holy shit, dude. I've never seen you get so nervous in your fucking life.
I yield the floor.
Okay, Jesus. You asked me a direct question. Who do we think this was done for? If you were to believe the rhetoric, you would think that this was done in the name of egalitarianism, which is starting to sound like my new word. But
Good.
you would think this was done for not only the American people to benefit, but that an obligation that America, as the superpower, which I don't think a lot of people would disagree with, we are the number one superpower in the world.
Right.
That we have an obligation to help other countries. Kind of be that beacon of light to guide them into the direction of how do you become a first world country, correct? Right. Even if they are a first world country, anyone that's traveled anywhere in the world, it's not even close. I mean, even there's a lot of European countries when you get outside of the big cities where it's like, holy shit, these guys don't even have like air conditioners or certain luxuries, and we're talking about European countries. You know what I mean? Outside of big cities, it's not uncommon. So we're supposed to be that beacon. So we do it in the name of helping this, not New World Order, but in the name of helping the world as a whole, right?
Yeah.
But we simply know that's not true.
Right.
We will call it the shadow organization, okay?
Yeah.
For the name, and that's what I was going to say before you fucking canceled me.
Yeah.
So there's a shadow organization of people, and I think that between the shadow organization of your fat cat elites and the military complex in this country, which a lot of them are heavily invested into or are directly involved with, and we have this illusion of that there's many, many companies, right? But they're all consolidated into these, what do you call them? Like these big organizations that actually own multiple brands.
Multinational companies that are all more powerful than governments,
like
right?
you think there's these standalone brands, right? But they're actually owned by bigger brands. What do you call them? Like
Consolidation.
Like subsidiaries or...
Yeah, but it's a massive...
a conglomerate.
Conglomerate, thank you.
Yeah.
These conglomerate groups that own multiple big brands that we think are standalone companies. So there's the illusion of choice, but it's actually it tickles up into a select group of people, and they are the movers and shakers, if you will. Remember last week, movers and shakers?
Yeah,
they're not part of that religion.
Last week,
but they're mover and shakers of that group in the military complex kind of controlling these things. Yeah. And there's what paving the way in the world, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And every country has those mover and shakers and has that military operation. And they've all kind of just started like jacking each other off, all these countries.
Right.
And they're like, we'll go to war with these guys if they don't play ball. And it's a trading of resources, because if they can control that, then the masses have no choice. Who are you going to fight? You're not fighting one country. You're not fighting one army. You're fighting a world order, if you will, not to get conspiracy theorists, but I think I don't think the world's as divided as we think.
Right.
I think the population of people are divided from their government.
You think there's some kind of like do you think there's like a consensus that the world is coming to now that understands who the big players are?
Yeah.
And, which has been talked about for generations, right? For decades before we were even born. Okay. Like
a lot of this stuff was set up way before we were born.
Yeah.
You know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So one thing that kind of comes to my mind is that the way Plato defines a golden age in the Republic is the golden age is when the myth is authentically believed by the ruling classes and by the lower classes. That everybody universally authentically truly believes the myth, you know? And what he's saying in this article is that it's beginning to defrost.
Yeah.
You know, where you know that so
Not just defrost, it's decaying, bro.
yeah, it's decaying. That the myth is receding.
Yeah, say
that,
receding. I was
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
about to say
receding.
that.
Yeah.
Say
and
receding
that,
again, yeah.
and that basically for a long time the myth has been the myth has not been believed by the elites.
Yeah.
And they've been perpetuating it on the lower classes, on the hoi polloi, on the regular people.
Yeah.
And for a long time the regular people in America have believed it.
Yeah.
But now now they don't. And you know, and in many ways, if you have the elites, so the golden age of America would have been when the elites and the non-elites, the lower classes,
The plebes.
the plebs,
Plebs.
when everybody believed the same
Whiskey's
myth
hitting.
authentically, then we fall out of a golden age where the plebs still believe the myth, but the elites don't.
Okay.
Now,
Wait.
Now we're approaching a time where the plebs are starting to, you know, the faith in the myth
Yeah.
is waning among the plebs.
Yeah.
And so that may be the ushering in of a new golden age,
Right.
where basically both sides are like, yeah, America is not sending money to, we're not sending a bunch of money to these African countries because we love them.
Right.
We're sending money over there so that we can perpetuate our own power.
Why you go to Africa though? Let's get back to
Yeah.
let's get back to
You just kind of go to Africa real
let's
quick.
hit up the Middle East though real quick.
Okay.
Like you know, and then
We got to be careful in what we say, right?
aha. And so you know, I mean
Be careful.
I didn't say anything, dude.
so who's the plebs though? That's what I'm trying to
All
get
right,
to.
well-
Is that the yeah,
I'll give a metaphor. That way we can't get in trouble.
right.
Be careful.
Right.
I'm using a metaphor. I'm going to use fiction.
A metaphor.
All right.
I'm not even going to use metaphor. Yeah, it's metaphorical in
Yeah.
nature, but I'm going to use fiction.
Okay.
Have you guys ever seen Harry Potter?
Boom.
You have the good
What?
guys, and then you have the bad guys. They're Death Eaters.
Yeah.
You have the Death Eaters.
Yeah.
The cult.
Yeah.
Well, technically, Snape was a Death Eater, but he was a good guy. Spoiler alert, but
Snake was the dude, man. Snake was my guy.
All right, guys, I don't give a fuck about Snape. All right, dude, okay, can I just finish this fucking
Okay,
thing?
sorry.
Like, right, okay, yeah.
yeah, sorry.
The fuck was that? Dude, okay, so anyways, what do you guys? You have your.
You just made a statement condemning all Death Eaters, and the only thing I was saying is that not
Dude,
all Death Eaters
it's never
were
absolutes.
to be condemned.
We're talking majorities.
Yep.
Yeah.
Only
So
Sith
you-
speaking.
Absolutely. Okay. Dude. Fuck.
All right. Here.
So you have your Death Eaters, right? Mm-hmm. And then on the other side, you have your Order of the Phoenix.
Okay.
So you have your good your good wizards, right? Or your perceived good wizards by their morality standards, and then you have your Death Eaters.
Yeah.
And then you have the Ministry of Magic. Right? It's your government. Making all these laws. But all of them have to play by one rule against the most powerful magic users.
Right.
And they control all the resources.
The necromancers.
The goblins.
Okay.
Green gods.
Okay.
That's my metaphor.
I told you.
Yeah, there you go.
I told you.
Yes, think about it. Think about it.
brother.
There you go.
Yes.
okay.
Magic doesn't fuck with them. They're powerful. They
Right.
don't fear shit.
Oh, okay.
They're outside the bounds
Right.
of the ministry.
Right.
They don't have to adhere to the ministry.
Yeah.
They have their own laws, their own rules.
Yeah.
They're disliked by the magic community, but no one can do shit to them.
Right. 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 Right.
Yeah.
Right.
See what I'm saying? Even
Right.
the Death Eaters fucking have to deal with them. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Right.
Doesn't
Right.
matter.
Yep.
Order deals with them.
Yep.
Ministry deals with them.
Yep.
Fucking Death Eaters deals with them.
Yep.
It's the goblins, brother. The goblins.
Bruh.
There you
They're
go.
in there though.
There it is. What do you guys think about that metaphor? That
I
analogy?
agree. I mean, I agree with it.
The question is that a metaphor?
No.
That's it. Yeah.
Well, so one of the things that we're doing around the world is we're trying to expand our system.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. If you want to use the goblins as a metaphor, we're expanding the goblin system.
Yeah.
Like a system where basically we try to supersede the local governance of a country who would be more likely, and look, I'm not going to say that every state it is good, because at my core I'm a state skeptic. That's the way I describe myself. But
A nervous statist.
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. Just the state gives me a little bit of anxiety. Yeah, but the thing is, the more local the state, the less likely it is, or the more local the state, the more local the governance, the more likely that state is going to be authentically looking out for the best interest of the people that it governs. Because they can go and directly represent themselves.
Right.
And so when we're dealing with this system, when there are genuine local governments that rise up, that are looking out for the best interest of the local people, you end up having a lot of you end up having bigger countries like the United States that will label the leadership of those countries. We'll say, oh, they're authoritarian, they're evil, they're wicked. Take what we did to Gaddafi. We'll go and say about someone like Gaddafi that he is the modern day Hitler, right? We'll say that he is this modern day, we'll label him almost as being the modern day great Satan.
Yeah.
And we'll say that we must overthrow him, that we must destroy him, we must dismantle his government. And the reason for that is that he is a guy that's not playing ball in the global system that we want him to.
Yeah.
The system that we want him to play ball in is one where all the resources of his country are traded on international commodity markets.
Okay.
That basically would give the traders in Chicago and Wall Street and the city of London control over his country. And one thing about Gaddafi was like, look, love me or hate me, you guys can go screw yourselves.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is you got to have your safe at Green Gods, brother.
Well, or you got to have your own Green Gods.
That's not an option.
Well, that's what Gaddafi said.
But you
Where's
know what?
Gaddafi?
Well, Gaddafi is no longer with us.
Yeah.
And
Do you guys remember the other
but-
bank in Harry Potter?
No.
Do you guys remember what it's called?
No.
Hogwarts.
It's because there fucking wasn't one.
right. Or
That's right, brother.
or if one existed, they erased any evidence that it ever existed.
Any evidence, boy.
So
Burnt that motherfucker to
So-
a crisp.
Wow. Dragon fire.
So look, so continuing with Gaddafi, you have someone that took the resources of his country, and in many ways violating free market principles and stuff, but took the resources of his country and said, okay, we're going to make sure that Libyans are entitled to like a car.
Yeah.
That Libyans are entitled to a free college education.
Yeah.
The Libyans are entitled to universal health care and all these other kind of things.
Yeah.
Things that I personally don't fundamentally agree with government doing. But nonetheless, that was something that Gaddafi believed was in the best interest of his people.
Yeah.
And the standard of living of the average Libyan was actually really good. And
When Gaddafi was in leadership.
when Gaddafi was in power. And this is another interesting thing. Before Gaddafi rose to power, Libya was a net food importer.
Yeah.
Okay? When you're a net food importer, in fact, I think you and I talked about this regarding China like a month ago or something like that.
Yeah.
Or longer than that. When you're a net food importer, that makes your country inherently unstable.
Okay.
Vulnerable.
Right, vulnerable.
Because you need resources from other
Exactly.
people.
Because the thing is, there are two types of resources that any economy needs and cannot have a scarcity of.
Right.
It's food and energy.
Right.
If you got a scarcity of one of those two things, people are going to rise up
Right.
and they're going to overthrow that government.
Right.
You know, so Gaddafi engaged in all these big public works programs. And built something. I forget what it was called. It was called the Great Canal or something like that. Do you remember what it was called?
I do not.
Nico, do you remember? Okay, so a lot of people called it the eighth wonder of the modern world, and you could actually see it from space. And what he did was he took fresh water and created a giant canal system to bring it into the desert of Libya, and made it and overnight created thousands and thousands of acres of brand new farms that didn't exist before. I mean,
Right.
I think thousands of years ago, that part of Africa was very lush and green.
Yeah.
But the climate changed.
Yeah.
And it became drier and more arid.
Right.
And so he created this vast canal system. And when he was overthrown, Libya was a net food exporter.
Okay.
They were producing so much food in Libya that they were exporting it around the world.
Wow.
So the thing to remember about Gaddafi is he figured out a formula to work outside of the kind of like world trading system, world financial system, and everything. Mm-hmm. And that made him kind of an anomaly and something that he was working toward. Like if you go back and this is not all about Libya and Gaddafi. I'm going to wrap this up in just a minute. When you go back and look at when you go back and you look at his final, it's some of the speeches that he was making like in the last 5 years of his life. Mm-hmm. Gaddafi is talking about how resource rich Africa is.
Yeah.
And talking a lot about the African Union, which I believe wasn't the African Union founded by the Ethiopian emperor?
It wasn't founded by him, but it was the African Union was
The headquarters was
in
in
Addis Ababa.
Yes.
Yep.
And he was at the very least a big patron of it, wasn't
Well,
he?
that's because Ethiopia was the only country in Africa to not be colonized.
Yes.
And sorry, Nico, the Italians did try to colonize Ethiopia and they lost. That was in the 1890s.
Brother, we were just trying to bring you guys Catholicism. That's all we were doing. That's all we were doing. That's it. We weren't trying to do nothing else.
Well, so the last thing I'll say about Gaddafi, the very very last thing I'll say about Gaddafi is this: he, his whole thing was what was this vision of multipolarity around the world, which I'd argue he was a little bit ahead of his time.
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to lionize the guy. Like
That brother had.
Yeah.
Listen, that brother had him and his sons had problems.
They did. They were not nice people, but the thing is, a lot of the people running America, the American system and the European system and the global system,
they're not nice people.
They're not nice people either. Mm-hmm. They're perfectly fine butchering thousands of people every year just so that they can make a little bit more money or just so they can exercise a little bit more power in the world. But Gaddafi's whole thing was that Africa is resource rich and that there is,
which it is,
very very resource rich, and that there isn't any reason that Africa should not leverage their resources for their own gain and for their own interest.
Yeah.
And so the thing, and basically what the vision that Gaddafi had for the world was one where Africa would be kind of its own region, sort of like the way that the European Union is, where the African Union would set policies that would benefit Africa and help Africa develop, and it wouldn't be from like wealthy bankers in Geneva or wealthy bankers in London or wealthy bankers elsewhere saying, well, this is what the development is going to look like in Kenya, or this is what the development is going to look like in Libya or Botswana or whatever, that would organically be determined by Africans themselves, and that they would set the tone for that.
Yeah.
And one of the last things I want to point out is, NATO, which is supposed to be a defensive organization, they got involved in overthrowing Gaddafi in Libya.
Yeah.
And this great canal system that Gaddafi built, that turned Libya into a net food exporter because of how much food they were able to grow.
Right.
The NATO bombed that thing and blew it up.
Okay.
They decimated it because they didn't want Libya to be independent anymore. They wanted for them to be dependent on the international system.
Right.
They wanted Libya to be reliant on importing American and European grain.
Yeah.
And then that gives the Americans and the Europeans leverage over Libya.
Yeah.
So that's just one example. So
Wasn't Gaddafi? Didn't he go to the United Nations and give like a 3-hour speech?
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
And see another thing. Here's another thing, man. Gaddafi. He was like an OG unk. He was OG uncle right there. Okay. He blasted them Saudi Arabians for being,
Saudis, yeah.
you know what I'm saying, for being, for lack of a better word, I'm gonna say them niggas was cuckolds. Okay, because they was sitting over there doing everything in their power to please, the Western world. So as long as they could, sell that oil. Okay.
But the Saudis are in on it too.
You know? Look, man, I'm gonna tell you something.
Be careful.
I'm gonna be careful. Okay, look, dude. Arab nations don't give a shit about a particular place. Okay, they don't, dude. They get a cut,
Yeah.
and they want to stay. They want to stay in that zone. You know what I'm saying? And so Gaddafi was calling them out, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that they was like, Unc got to go. You know what I'm saying? He's disturbing the peace around here. You know what I'm saying? He's getting a little too old, and he feels seasoned. You know what I'm saying? And he feel like he can say whatever he want.
Like
And
he's not wearing any underwear with his sweatpants,
Exactly.
brother. Yeah.
With that grand boo boo.
Yeah.
With
we
the-
gotta
with the-
stop that.
Exactly.
That's right.
You got to shut that brother down, man.
Well, and this article kind of goes into foreign interventions that were carried out
Over
Yeah.
centuries, bro.
Yeah, and so before we actually started this podcast, the three of us, we put our heads together and we actually made a list of the foreign interventions that are discussed in this article.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to do, I'm going to run through those real quick.
Okay.
And then we can kind of
Elaborate.
Then we can kind of tease them out.
Yeah.
So there are quite a few. So just listen. It's very interesting to hear these. And of course, if you want to learn more about these things, you can go and actually read the article for yourself.
Yeah.
But so there have been quite a few interventions post World War II. Kind of all over the place. He starts with he talks about us overthrowing the Shah of Iran in 1953.
Shah Pahlavi.
Yep. He also talks about the Bay of Pigs, where the United States attempted and failed to overthrow the Castro government in Cuba.
Yep.
Central and South America, we tried to overthrow several governments down there. The Somalian Civil War from
Black Hawk Down.
yeah, and all that stuff began in the 1980s, and we're still intervening over there.
Yep.
There was the first Gulf War, which, without going into too much detail with that, look up slant drilling. That's really what the cause of the first Gulf War was. The Kosovo War, which lasted from 1998 to 1999, where the U.S. and NATO basically intervened through NATO to overthrow to carve out Kosovo as a brand new country away from Serbia, so that we could weaken Russia's ally there and bring in a whole bunch of Muslims into the area. I've got I'm not trying to attack Muslims here. I'm just saying that that's what happened. And then,
Well, if they're implicit in this,
yeah,
then yes, we are. Yes, we are.
yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And the Syrian civil war from 2011 up till now, which we just recently succeeded last year in overthrowing Assad, right?
Yeah.
The war in Ukraine, which really began in 2014 or maybe even a little bit before that. It just depends on which U.S. backed revolution coup of the government you begin counting from. The war in Yemen, which began in 2015, and then all the craziness in Gaza and the West Bank, where we're supporting wholesale slaughter of lots of innocent people. And this is the thing: it doesn't matter if you're a Zionist or if you're not. You know, we're talking. The people I'm mentioning here are innocent lives.
Yeah.
These are people who are like premature babies that are in incubators in the hospital, and the hospital's getting blown up because there's a claim that because the IDF is claiming that hospital is an entrance to the elaborate system of tunnels underneath, and they can't even prove it. There's no actual evidence that was an entrance to the tunnels.
Pulling right out of their ass.
Yeah. So okay, so all right. So I just mentioned those things.
Right.
We have about another 10 minutes before we need to start wrapping up.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about this whole laundry list of all these interventions that we're continuously involved in, and specifically the article being about that the great myth, that the belief and faith in the great myth is receding.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about all of these interventions, and what impact do you think they've had domestically on the way that Americans think about their country and think about the foreign interference around the world?
Yeah.
Because it kind of seems to me that some of these interventions, a lot of Americans don't even know about.
Yep.
And they don't really care that much about them. And then and then other ones there's been blowback from.
Yep.
So what do you guys think? Who wants to jump in first?
Well, I think, this starts with the whole idea of America has been taught to believe that we were spreading democracy.
Yeah.
Okay. Now I'm gonna take y'all back to when we were kids. Okay. We were in early middle school, high school, right? When we went over there to Afghanistan. Okay. And what did we say? Oh, we trying to spread democracy. We want to give these people the right to, vote. And
Just for the record, you guys are older than me.
Okay.
Yeah. Right. Nico was in diapers at the time.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
I look distinguished. I'm young.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
It's a beautiful skin.
You got the beauty. You know what I'm saying? You got the olive Italian.
We talking like 2001? I was
something like that.
I was in fifth grade.
2001, 2002.
So I think I was in like 7th grade. Yep.
Yeah, I was in fifth. Oh,
I was in 9th grade at the time.
Okay.
You old bitch.
you old bitch.
Okay, yeah.
Right? Okay, so look, man. Afghanistan, we went over there. We're trying to spread democracy and stuff. Okay, now, what was the leading group that we designated as terrorists?
You talking about the Taliban or the Pashtuns?
The Taliban. Taliban. We said that the Taliban were terrorists, bro. Okay?
Taliban.
Now, I'm going to tell you something about the Taliban, right? Now, in Afghanistan, there's this little culture, man. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of this. They got this little culture where the men, older men, go after younger men. You know what I'm saying? Like in a very, well, to put it bluntly, bro, like in a homosexual way. They get them to dance for them and stuff like that, and then they hire them for sexual pleasures. The only group that called that out and was trying to stamp that out was the Taliban.
Of course.
Okay? Now, all of them groups are Pashtuns. I mean, they come from different tribes and stuff like that. But the Taliban didn't like that. And Americans, for lack of a better, explanation, used that to their advantage. They were siding with people who were, who wanted to live like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, coercing and extorting and manipulating young men into this old cultural phenomenon that existed in Afghanistan before.
Jeffrey Epstein level stuff.
Yeah.
You know, the island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Before the rise, before the strict, you know, foundations of Sharia law and everything. Okay. You know, I'm not condoning Sharia law, and I'm not condoning, you know, like, you know, whatever, like,
But
whatever it's called.
you know, the thing is, protecting
Wahhabism, sorry.
You know, this is the thing though. Protecting kids versus not protecting kids.
Yeah.
I'll side. I think all of us will side with protecting kids at every step.
Yeah.
So if that means the only option is like Sharia law or something,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Two
You know,
things
if
can
that's
be
the
true
only
at
option.
once.
Yeah.
Two things can be true at once.
Yeah.
We can disagree with the premise of whatever's going on and be like, but this was a good thing that happened from it.
Yeah.
Two things can be true at once. Like, I don't know why we're like, it's black or
Yeah.
white. There's no fucking, you
Right.
fucking get rid of it all.
Right.
It's like, dude, they were, for all intents and purposes, they were, you know, butt graping,
Yeah.
if you will, these young men.
Yes.
And making these young men feel like they were part of a bigger, like, you have to do this. It's initiation into this,
Yeah.
into this cult,
Yeah.
of believing. And
Yeah.
don't worry, because one day you'll get to butt grape your own
Yeah.
young
Yeah.
man and,
Yeah.
and bring them into the light.
Yeah.
Trauma begets trauma.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. And you're
Yeah.
like, don't worry, this will bring you closer into it. You'll be one of us.
Right.
You know what I mean? Don't
And it
worry.
would-
just do a little dance for
Yeah.
me, and then I'll.
Yeah.
You know.
And it was also a form of indentured servitude, bro.
Yeah.
See,
of course.
they would go after these families, and it was like, you owe me a debt. Okay, so if you don't pay this debt, you know, or you're poor as shit, you know, let me take your son and I'll give you some money.
That relates to, remember we were talking about usury last year?
Yes.
Or not last year.
Damn,
last
he's
week.
really trying to sell this
Right,
shit, huh?
right.
Yeah.
Shane, I ain't been gone that long.
Yeah. He's only been gone a week, man.
Yeah.
He just flew back in for this.
You know what I'm saying? But see, they did that, man. And so the animosity and the resentment towards that, I think, allowed for the Taliban to persist.
You want to know another reason why I think we hated the Taliban so much? Now look, again, the Taliban.
Yeah, ain't nobody promoting the Taliban,
They're not
bro.
good people.
Okay.
You know,
No.
the Taliban are not people I would invite into my home, into my life. In fact, I would do everything I could to stay away from those people because they just seem like a bunch. You know, they're a bunch of nut jobs too. Just like the other people are nut. There are a lot of nut jobs over in that part of the world, but so it's interesting, and this is some. Don't take my word for it. All right. So what
I
you
usually
can-
don't.
Okay. So what you can do is go back and Google search, and filter for like the early and what?
Dude, new demographic, showing your age. You're old as fuck. Let me interject right here, asterisk. Or you can chat GPT it.
Okay, and
ahead.
this is what you want to do. Search for news articles that are from the 90s.
Yeah.
And I want for you to look for Taliban and opium. And this is what you'll end up finding is that the first Bush administration, the Clinton administration, and then the very, very early George W. Bush administration, while they were in power before 9/11, they were all trying to negotiate with the Taliban to get them to unban the growing of opium.
Yep.
You know, poppies.
Yep.
And the thing is that the Taliban were completely against the opium trade.
But yeah, they wouldn't budge.
Yeah, completely opposed to it. And the thing is, for whatever reason, this is something I don't understand. You know, this is one of the few. This is one of the things in this world that I have no understanding of. Apparently, Afghanistan is it's the optimum place to grow opium.
Yep.
That's the one, like that and the Khyber Pass, which is the Asian land bridge into China through the mountains. Those are the only two things that Afghanistan has to offer the rest of the world. And if you're Afghani, I'm not trying to offend you, but those are the two main things that foreign empires that are looking to carve up other parts of the world. Those are the two main things that any foreign country would be looking to try to get from Afghanistan. It's their opium and it's access to the land bridge to China. So in Afghanistan, the Taliban were not backing off. The Taliban were like, we're not going to allow our farmers to grow opium. This is not happening. Now, this is something I want for you guys to think about, and I want for people at home to think about this too. What crisis began in the United States? It was a pharmaceutical crisis that began in the United States in the early 2000s. Among U.S. Patients.
Holy shit!
Sorry,
dude, Jesus.
So among American patients that went to their doctors because they were in pain.
I'm gonna go with the 3 guesses. Opium.
Yep.
Yeah.
The opioid crisis.
Yep.
Where all these patients were told, oh, there are all these new forms of pain medicines that they're non-addictive. Yes, they're opiates, but they're non-addictive. It's a miracle.
Yeah.
You know. But so this is the thing. The U.S. invades Afghanistan. We take control of the poppy fields. We overthrow the Taliban, and the first thing we do is we say, "Oh, grow poppy again."
Yeah.
Then what happens? The opioid crisis, because the U.S. pharmaceutical market gets
Flooded
flooded,
the market, baby.
flooded with all this cheap opium. Because the thing that people don't ever want to talk about the American elites is that fundamentally they're a bunch of usurers and they're a bunch of drug dealers.
What that reminds you of?
You know?
The British Empire when they went to China. What
Yep.
they call that? The Opium Wars.
Opium Wars. Yep.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Little subversive little motherfuckers, man.
Yeah. And you know, and that's, you know, I think it was around that time that we can solidly argue that the faith in the American empire really began to slip
Yeah.
among Americans.
You talking about during in Afghanistan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like somewhere around that time period. It was like the early 2000s. A lot of people call it the aughts.
Yeah.
You know, like from
Okay.
2000 to 2009.
Yeah.
You know? So yeah, I kind of find that interesting. I know we kind of been all over the place. Let's start kind of wrapping up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are our final thoughts on this article?
Yeah.
And kind of on the myth of the benevolent American superpower?
Well, you know, my thing is that we need to, we need to stop telling this lie that America is going around the world just spreading freedom and liberation from tyranny. Okay? You know, like this whole idea of democracy, there's no real definition for that.
Right.
Everybody talks about democracy as if it like has a real definition. It does not.
It's a ploy by the powerful to manipulate the
Yeah.
masses.
Okay?
Democracy actually blows.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you know, that's my thing. It's like, and second of all, everybody does not want to live according to American ideals, okay, or Western ideals. You even if they do, you can't do that by force, bro.
Yeah.
When you do that by force, people become resentful. They become resentful. They become angry. They feel like they're being subjected to something they don't want.
Yeah.
Okay. And so that's something that has to be a choice. If a nation or country wants to live by the standards of Western values, I think one that has to be sort of a thing where they are inspired to do so. You know, they want to live like that, right? But not by force. You can't, and not by coercion.
You know, something I remember hearing a lot in the I guess around 2006 or 2007. Nico, I'm sure I remember you hearing this too a lot. And a lot of friends of ours. I'm sure you heard this a lot, Shannon, and this was in a lot of like neocon kind of circles, and back then I would swim around kind of in a lot of conservative and Republican circles, but I was opposed to the war. I was opposed to the war in Iraq.
You and I were more libertarian.
Yeah,
kind of Tea Party movement at that time.
Yeah, and you know, basically, if you want to know what most of our thoughts on foreign policy was, it was Ron Paul.
Yeah,
you know,
Ron Paul.
Very influenced by Ron Paul. And I remember
The American patriot.
Yeah, and I remember going and arguing with people about like the war in Iraq, for instance, and what they would say is, I remember saying to them, "Look, Saddam was not a good guy, but the problem is that by knocking him off, you destabilize the whole region, and he didn't have weapons of mass destruction. This war is all based on a lie." And the thing that they was, I remember lots of them saying this back to me was that, well, it doesn't matter that they didn't have weapons of mass destruction because two countries that drink Coca-Cola and eat McDonald's will not go to war with each other.
Right.
And they would say that to me, and they would say they would look at me and they'd be like, I don't understand how you don't understand this.
Well, I don't understand what that even means.
Well, you see, and that's what I would say to them. I would tell them, this is so crazy, because basically what you're saying is that you have to. It's like what you were just saying. They're talking about turning them into little miniature walking, talking Americans.
Yes,
and that's not their culture. And they don't want that.
They don't want that, bro.
You know.
And secondly, what was I going to say? You know, my thing is that you know, how can you go to another like, okay, bro, they don't understand none of that. Okay, look, you know, and this is not to take it back. I'm not trying to go like all the way back, you know, to whatever the 17th century and stuff. That's not their world. Okay, they didn't.
Right.
They didn't come from a place of like the Enlightenment and all that. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. That's not their. They don't conceive the world that way. Okay, and second of all, you know, you got to understand, like, the Western world colonized a lot of these places.
Yep.
So their perspective on that is that even if you said, "Oh, I'm trying to do a good thing and I'm trying to bring you guys like into the light or whatever," they look at it as, no, you're trying to like force us into the way you want us to live. You know what I'm saying? And on top of that, you subjugated us for years. Okay? And we don't want that. And, you know, look, man, when you talk about Afghanistan, you know, what's the nickname for Afghanistan? The death valley of empires or something?
Graveyard.
The graveyard of empires. Okay? Them people, look, man, they're not having none of that shit. Mm-hmm. Okay? They do not want us there.
They're tough.
They didn't want us there when the British came.
Right.
They didn't want us there when the Russians came. Okay? What did America think? Did we think we were going to go there and try to pull or move and they was going to accept all that?
Yeah.
They don't want that, bro. And we need to stop trying to think that we're going to go to these places and change their minds through warfare.
Well, I think the whole point of this article is we're not just trying to change their minds so that there's more countries out there that think like America does, right? Mm-hmm. We definitely try to change every country we're involved with minds and way of life for a net benefit. This reminds me of a meme. If you guys remember, there was a NASA article that came out, I want to say probably sometime in the late 2000s or maybe like 2011, right? Mm-hmm. And it said, NASA finds evidence that there might be oil on Mars.
Okay.
And then people took that article and it was Mars and it had like eagles popping in from every angle. Yeah. And all it said was, it sounds like Mars needs democracy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like America never does things just because we're like, oh, we think that these people could really have a better way of life.
Yeah.
And that life could be so good for them if they only take these American concepts,
right.
You know,
right.
that are so unique
yeah.
to not only like the West, right,
yeah.
but especially America. If they just had that, their life would be so much better.
Right.
We don't give a fuck about these people
right.
or their way of life.
Right.
It has to be a net benefit for America. So unlike, and people try to compare the two. So let's take something modern like Trump, right? Mm-hmm. Trump's doing it in a way to where he's not trying to force his way of life or the American values on these people. He's saying if we're going to do business on a global level, country to country, right, B2B, business to business, it needs to benefit both countries.
Right.
So Trump is making America a superpower again through the way you're supposed to do it,
Right.
which is free trade,
Right.
negotiation,
Right.
mutual benefits. You
Right.
take our products, we take your products.
Right.
Now both consumer bases and populations have the option of multiple,
Right.
multiple products.
Right.
That's in America that I can get behind, where we have relevance as a superpower again,
Right.
where people look at us, we're expanding.
Yeah.
We have for so long expanded as like an America imperial system,
Right.
where we kind of run the world, and we tell people, no,
Yeah.
we're going to bring you freedom.
Right.
Which we don't care about that. We're
Right.
trying to get their lumber. We're trying to
Right.
get their poppy. We're
Right.
trying to get their oil.
Right.
We're trying to get their, whatever it is. It doesn't matter.
Yep.
And we hide behind the guise of this illusion of, and people just buy it hook, line, and sinker.
Yep.
Like, oh, the Americans are so great, right?
Right.
When the rest of the country is literally screaming,
Right.
dude, these guys are pricks.
Right.
We don't want that. We don't like them. We
Right.
don't need that here.
Right. Right.
And not to segue, I know we're wrapping this up, and this might be a time for another thing. But at the same point, when America says that same sentence back to people, we're like, whoa, 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 whoa. You can come over here and be American,
Yeah.
but we don't want that either
Right.
over here.
Right.
Right? And then people lose their fucking mind.
Yeah.
So the rest of the world can say, we don't want America here.
Right.
Stay the fuck out of our country. We
Right.
don't want your shit. We don't want this. We're not American.
Right.
But when they come here and we're like, no, you need to adopt the American principles, come here, be American, we're like,
Yeah.
how can you say that? Because there is an American identity.
Right.
We're like, well, we're just a big mixing pot.
Yeah.
Though that might be true, we are a mixing pot, right? The ingredients have been fucking mixed.
Yeah.
The cake has been baked, baby.
Yeah.
And that cake's American.
Yeah.
And there is an American identity.
Yeah.
You don't have to lose cultural pride.
Right.
Shane's I don't understand why, but he's very proud to be Irish. Right? Like, I'm very proud to be Italian. Yeah, you
Yeah.
shouldn't be. I'm very proud to be Italian, right?
Yeah.
That's okay to have that.
Yeah.
But we're Americans.
Right.
And there is a cultural identity that goes along with that.
Right.
So I know that's a different topic for another time, but for the point of this article, I do think America hides behind the guise of some great benevolent,
Generosity,
country. We're
yeah.
going to put our hand on you and bless you with all the good fortunes
Yeah.
that come with Western ideas and culture.
Yeah.
And they simply don't fucking want it.
Right.
They don't.
Right.
It's not their way of living.
And that's not generosity, bro.
It's not generosity.
You know?
I've got three quotes that we picked before the podcast. I'd like to read directly from the article, and then we can start kind of putting a bow on it.
We didn't pick these.
Yeah. Well, okay, I picked them.
Yeah, we didn't
So-
do shit. That was an absolute fucking lie. He
So-
does that all the time. He just bullshits and then expects us to fucking shake our heads like, oh, yeah, no, I'm calling you out on it. Never heard these. Don't know what the fuck he's about to say. We're hearing them for the first time together.
So while I'm reading this, make sure to look at Nico's face
Yeah.
because you're going to see a face of
Absolute fucking confusion.
yeah. But it's going to be like a face of terrified confusion.
Oh,
You know,
Jesus,
It's
what are
gonna
you
be
about to
like-
fucking read?
So okay, so this is the first quote first quote from the article. Talking about our foreign policy and everything.
Okay.
How is this generosity? Where is the benevolence? The beneficiaries are special interest groups and military contractors. Certainly not the suffering citizens of the debilitated countries, nor the average American saddled with trillions of dollars of ever-increasing war debt. Do we want to pause? Do you guys want to say something to that?
I would like to ask a question. Which one of us picked that one?
Me.
Those you?
Okay.
Okay. You must be the next one then. He's like America, dude. He's like, oh, you'll love these quotes. They're great quotes. They're going to bring you so much happiness. You'll understand them.
Well, okay, can you read it again?
Yeah,
Of course.
Read it slow.
Okay.
And then we're going to do it.
All right, I'm going to read it slow, especially for you.
This fucking guy.
All right, so he says, how is this generosity? Where is the benevolence? The beneficiaries are special interest groups and military contractors. Certainly not the suffering citizens of the debilitated countries, nor the average Americans that are saddled with trillions of dollars of ever-increasing war debt.
Yeah.
I think we covered that.
Well,
I think we all agree with that 100%.
Yeah, I think that there's no way to like try to rehash that. You know what I'm saying? It's facts.
And it's basically like they're victimizing Americans. They're victimizing American citizens by making us poorer.
Yeah.
And newsflash, there are a lot of Americans that are on drugs because of how broke they are.
Yeah.
So you're victimizing American citizens, and then you're also victimizing these people overseas, whose countries you're leaving in tatters, and who you're utterly destroying them, right?
I think it's kind of like this. Let me do a little metaphor real quick, then you read the next 2 points. I think it's equivalent to 6 homeless people standing around a fire to stay warm, right? You walk up to them, you realize that this little drum that they're around, like in the old movies with the fire and the drum, and they're homeless. 2 of them are arguing because this drum's only big enough to actually hold 4 people, but there's 6 of them, right? And you walk up and you're like, oh, I have some money. I'm going to help them. So you walk up, you punch 4 of them in the fucking face, right? You hand 2 of them $1, and then you take all their clothes.
Right.
So that's America in a lot of these sentences. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that's how we do it.
Yeah.
We punch 4 of them in the fucking face.
Right.
We're like, now there's plenty of room for fire.
Yeah.
We stay warm, now you stay warm.
Right.
Here's $2, one for each of you.
Right.
And now I'm gonna take everyone's clothes.
Right.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Your life's better now because I was here.
Yeah.
What the fuck kind of thinking is that?
Yeah. I always, and this leads me back to my point about whose interest is this in. Who are we doing this for, bro? You know what I'm saying?
It's not you.
Yeah.
It's not Nico. It's not me.
So, you know what I'm saying? It's not the people down in Cumbie.
It's a shadow.
Right. Exactly. It's definitely not for them.
Shadow group.
Hey, man, I'm just saying. You know what I mean?
And
It's
then
that second one. This is the one Shannon picked.
yeah. Okay. So, and this one's short and sweet.
Just like Shannon likes it.
The truth is, many of our leaders are completely indifferent to the suffering they have caused.
Yep.
And that's
a good
100%
quote,
true.
dude.
That was a good one. That was a really, really good one.
I'll pick that one.
Solid.
They don't give a fuck.
Bang.
And then the final one is,
This is me. I picked this.
Okay.
it is time to stop allowing ourselves to be duped by deceptive claims of generosity and good intentions and start to acknowledge and learn from the many disasters our country's leadership has authored.
Yeah, it's my
What?
fucking rebellious spirit
Yep.
right there,
you
baby.
go. There you
That's
go.
why I picked it.
So this is my final thought on everything. Is when we abandoned the Christian order, or at least when our elites abandoned the Christian order and began to embrace crazy, wacko, atheistic nihilism, they basically what they did was they started to say, well, morals are opinions. Morals are subjective. Morals aren't real. Morals are constructed. But what they said is power. Now, power, that's the real thing.
Yeah.
Power is objective. Power is real.
Yeah.
And really, when you get down to the core of the Gospels, and we're all Catholics, the core teaching of the Catholic Church is, it's actually the opposite. Power is constructed. Power is the thing that's fleeting. When you die, you no longer wield any more power over anybody else.
Right.
And you'll be held to account for how you exercise that power.
Yeah.
By a higher court, brother.
Exactly.
Yep.
And the thing is, power is the opinion. Power is the thing that's constructed.
Yeah.
Morals are real.
Yeah.
That's the objective thing. That's the real thing.
Yeah.
That's not constructed.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, what we have to fight for is, and I think that's what a lot of this foreign policy discussion is about, is that power is bullshit. Power is constructed. And you need to view it as being that, because the thing is, you can construct power.
Yeah.
And the thing is, we have to realize that these power systems and power structures that all these people operate, that they exercise dominance over the rest of us with, that it's all constructed bullshit.
Yeah.
You know, and the thing is, and the morals, that's the real thing.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
You cling to that, and you're clinging to what's real, and that's more powerful than every bullet in the barrel of every gun in the world aimed at you.
That's the way to end it right there,
Amen.
brother. Good shit,
Amen.
guys.
All right.
Fuck yeah.
Boom.
Gentlemen,
Boom.
we love you guys. We'll see you soon.
Yes.
Much love. Shannon, good to have you back, brother.
Yes.
Thank you, brother. Thanks you guys for having me, man.
Yep, and you got to come back soon.
I will.
Yes, sir. Yes,
Will
sir.
do. Will do.
Love it.